when I said, can you just send me a book that summarizes all this stuff? Because I'm busy and I don't have time to go to all these conferences, read all this stuff. And I said, to summarize this alternative medicine. And he said, I mean, he like came through the phone at me, alternative? What do you mean alternative? And I'm like, well, it's a little different, maybe kind of quack kind of stuff. I mean, I was so arrogant and naive. But he said, okay, Ben, smarty pants. He said, next time your car's making a weird little noise, are you going to take it to the mechanic or the alternative mechanic? Next time you're going to get on an airplane to fly to a medical conference, you're going to go with the aviation guys or the alternative aviation guys. Next time you're
Wow.
going to build a addition to your clinic, you're so busy down there and you need to build an addition, you're going to call the engineer or the alternative engineer to design that thing. And he said, Ben, this is just the way it is. There's no alternative to the truth. God designed things a certain way. All mechanics have to follow the law of internal combustion engines. All pilots have to follow the aerodynamic laws of that got put into the physical realm. And that's just the way it is. There's no alternative to the truth.
Welcome to Kingdom Over Everything. I am your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes. And I have with me Dr. Ben Edwards. Can I go back and forth? Sometimes I'm going to call you Dr. Ben, sometimes I call you Ben. Is that okay?
Oh, we go for it.
Okay,
I
cool.
don't care
All right.
about titles.
So Dr. Ben is the founder of Veritas Medical as well as Veritas Wellness, and we're going to explore a bit of that. And you and I met Ben because of he's a dear friend of mine, and I don't know how well you know Andy, but I know you guys met, Andy Mason with Heaven in Business, and he told me after he met you, he's like, you need to have a conversation with Dr. Ben Edwards. And so I was so delighted to meet you about a little over a month ago and can't wait to explore your story here. So thanks for joining me.
Oh, you bet, Shay. Thank you for having me on. I love to get on and talk about what I do because the Lord just boom opened my eyes to something in the world and people a lot of them don't know. And so
Yes.
that's what I do is go give talks and educate and try to open people's eyes on the truth in the medical world. But
I love it. That's exactly what we're all here for. So let's start with a bit of your backstory, how you even got into medicine in the first place.
okay. So I grew up in a little town in central Texas, north of Austin. Both my granddads were the two doctors in the town, kind of those old school doctors that did everything. They could make house calls, deliver babies at the house. They could amputate your leg if you needed to. They could the whole, took care of the whole family, all that. Got paid with chickens and whatever, they were old school. But anyways, so I grew up watching these guys take care of the whole town and they were great men and pillars in the community, deacons at the church, just these great guys. And I thought, man, they really help people. They've really impacted people's lives. And so I thought, that's what I want to do, be a doctor like them in a small town and take care of the whole family. So I went to undergrad at Baylor. And while I was there, I started to doubt my calling into medicine. So I changed my major 5 times. I was looking for something else to do. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't want to be in that much schooling forever and that much debt. But anyways, the Lord got a hold of me and said, no, go. So went to UT Houston Medical School, graduated there 2002. Did most of my training there at MD Anderson in the Texas Medical Center. So really amazing place to learn conventional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And then went to Waco for family practice residency. And then went out, graduated from there and went to a small town. My wife and I at that time had one kiddo, a 1-year-old boy, and we moved out to West Texas. Little tiny town out there called Post. And so we did the small town country doctor thing for 7 years. And,
So you
that
were
was my
amputating
dream.
legs. You were amputating legs and delivering babies and all of the things.
Not quite the amputation part. Although one funny story, that a convenience store there in Post, one night, Friday night, they called me at home, said, hey, doc, you got to get down here. This girl's got her hand stuck up underneath counter safe that I guess they didn't have the key for it, but her hand was stuck in there, her finger. She couldn't get it out. I thought I was going to have to amputate. But anyways, yeah, we did all that small town country doctor stuff. So house calls and Friday night football game team doctor and nursing home. I covered the county jail, the juvenile detention center,
Oh,
of
wow.
course, the clinic, just all the normal stuff. And it's going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, but I'm setting this story up. We were very successful from the world
Sure.
standpoint financially. So that clinic had lost money as a county clinic. Medicaid, Medicare were the main payers, and they don't pay real good. So if you're not real efficient, you'll lose money in a little county clinic. And they'd lost money for a while, for about 10 years. The taxpayers were making up that deficit. And they challenged me when I came, said, "Hey, the taxpayers want off the hook. They want this thing financially sound. So can you do that?" So we got after it, and of course had a great team, great nurse, great support in the community that got behind us, and we got it done. We just cranked through volume. That's how you make things work in a little clinic, is or any clinic.
Right.
It's volume. You got to have volume when your payment per customer is not too great. You got to have more customers,
Right.
and you got to have them coming back, and it's just a machine, and it just goes. But anyways, I thought I was doing the right thing. I was doing what I was trained to do. And then the numbers were there every month. The county hospital district board meeting, just throw those financials on the table and boom, man, you're in the top 95th percentile of all clinics in America
Wow.
with the number of visits, number of procedures, collections, revenue, all that. So they built a brand new clinic for us, $1 million, brand new. In a year, they had it paid off because that tax money's coming in, not needing it because we're self sufficient.
Right.
Washington Post comes down, the newspaper from DC, and follows me around for a week, puts me on the front page of the paper, Washington Post paper. If this is how you do small town doctrine and make it work and all that. So, I mean, I'm just living my dream. We've got like 4 kids at this point. We're just living this. I mean, I thought, the good life.
Yes.
Oh, and then, well, let me just back up.
Uh-huh.
We had the first kid when we first moved to Post.
Yes.
And we thought we want a kid every 2 years. We're going to have 4 kids, all this me, I, my plans. Well, that second kid didn't come.
Mhm.
We got off birth control and she didn't get pregnant like she did on that first one, first month. My wife got pregnant first month, first time. Didn't get pregnant first month. No, okay. Second month, nothing. Third month, fourth month, 12 months in, 12 negative pregnancy tests. I said, honey, we're infertile. That's the definition of infertility, 12 months of unprotected intercourse. So we go to the fertility doctor, do all this stuff for another 12 months. I mean, that roller coaster, every
Yes.
emotional crash and burn. So we're 24 months into this thing. And I cracked that Bible open where it says, seek ye first the kingdom.
Mhm.
And I grabbed Jamie and I said, look at that. I mean, of course, we'd read that. We both grew up in church, but
Sure.
that day it hit us like, man, what are we doing? We're seeking a baby every month and it's crashing us. We are so out of line.
Wow.
We got down on our knees. We told the Lord, hey, we're sorry. We are so out of line. So from now on, it's your way, not our way. Whatever you have for us, let's go. Thank you for the one kid. We're good. This big family, we thought, no, we're laying it down. What else you got for us? Of course, the very next month we get
Of
pregnant.
course.
So looking back, that started it all. So that was only 1 year into the Garza County Health Clinic.
Right.
So now I'm just trucking along doing my thing. But that year 7, my nurse practitioner at the time that I hired to help me because we were so busy, he and his wife went to a bed and breakfast in a town north of here called Amarillo, and he has celiac disease where you can't eat gluten or your
Yep.
gut gets all. So he went up there and he told the bed and breakfast lady, "I need a gluten-free pancake in the morning," and she said, "That's fine, we can do that for you, but there's a doctor here that could cure you of that."
Mm.
And my nurse prac blew that off because that's crazy. You don't cure celiac. You don't cure any disease. You manage. Medical school taught us to manage
Yes.
disease. You manage asthma. You manage high blood pressure. You manage high blood sugar. You manage everything. Management versus root cause reversal.
Right.
But anyways, we'll get into that later. So my nurse practice, whatever. And she kept pestering all weekend. And finally, just to get her to leave him alone, let me talk to this guy because his office was right there in the bed and breakfast. And that doctor started telling my nurse practice some stuff that to his intellectual mind was like, there's no way. But to his spirit man was like, man, there's something here. This guy's speaking truth.
Right.
But then that intellect kicks in, says there's no way. And you just get in that battle of cognitive dissonance.
Yep.
But my nurse practice walked away from that thinking, man, what this guy's saying, it just resonates. I can't let it go. And it's simple and it's all natural. It's not crazy crystals, whatever, go hug a tree and drink grass juice or something.
Right.
It wasn't that. So he did what the guy said to do, this doctor. And over 3 or 4 months, and he didn't tell me any of this
Okay.
till later. 3 to 4 months down the road, he comes to me and says, Doc, and I'd noticed he slimmed up. He wasn't overweight, but a little extra 10 pounds. He had slimmed up, complexion was better, mood was good. Like he just looked healthy,
Right.
energetic, all that. Well, then he comes to me and says, "Doc, I think my celiac's cured."
Wow.
And I was like, "What are you talking about? Get back to work, you crazy fool." And he, I mean, kind of got offended. He went to the break room. Went to the break room. A drug rep had brought breakfast burritos that morning. He got one, came out to the nurse's station, ate it right in front of me. That's gluten on that wheat tortilla. And then he had a hamburger at lunch and he had cookies from a drug rep that afternoon. So three gluten bombs in one day.
Right.
Normally that would have sent him into tailspin, into the bathroom. He would have called in sick the next day.
Yes.
And he was fine. He was totally
Mm.
fine. And he was telling me, he said, "Doc, I'm telling you, I'm cured. I can handle wheat." And in that moment, what hit me was, man, this is crazy. And I start going into, well, I mean, maybe a miracle cure, just a one-off kind of thing.
Right.
Maybe he just kind of went into remission for a minute and it's coming right back. Maybe just all this stuff trying to figure it out. But ultimately, what I thought was, man, what am I going to do with my next celiac patient that walks in the door and they're looking at me for the answer? Am I going to tell them just eat gluten free the rest of your life?
Right.
See you later? Or am I going to say, medical school says to do this, eat gluten free the rest of your life? This crazy, maybe quack of a doctor up in Amarillo, you could go talk to my nurse prac if you want to. So I felt obligated to at least say, hey, there's something my nurse prac did. It work for him. I don't know. Maybe it's just him, but you can go talk to him. So I decided to do that,
Right.
give two options. But then I thought, man, I got to know what this guy's saying. This is my nurse prac. He's under my authority. I'm responsible for him. I got to call that doctor and see what's up. I called that doctor and I mean, I grilled him like, who are you? What are you doing? What do you mean? And he just starts just peppering me with truth. And he's like, Ben, there's no such thing as diseases.
Mm.
I'm like, what? And I grabbed my schedule for the day. My nurses had printed it off every morning, set it right there on the desk. And I just went through 40 different patients and their diseases: asthma and depression and ADD and ulcerative colitis and diabetes and hypertension and acid reflux and arthritis and all this stuff. And he said, these are consequences,
Mm.
not diseases. If you weren't born with it, you probably don't need to keep it. He said, there's a lack of knowledge, a lack of stewardship. We've been deceived. The body's designed perfectly. God designed it perfectly. If you understand that and you steward it the way he intended, it'll function. And I mean, so he starts throwing this truth at me and I'm like, oh man. But then I'm like, there's no way. They would have taught me this in med school. I was so naive. I mean, doctors walk across that stage, get their diploma, get their white coat, get their MD. And I mean, most doctors, I think, I mean, I'm sure there's some not, but most in my class went to there with a pure heart.
Sure.
I want to be like my granddad's. He helped the community. I want to help people. This is my calling, help heal them. But so we think, I just learned when we graduate,
Yeah.
I just learned everything there is to know to go help the people of Garza County, Texas.
Right.
And you walk in there believing that. So when a patient comes to you and says, hey, doc, I read this holistic newsletter from this one guy out here about this herb or some natural product, and they would do this to me. And of course, I didn't have a clue what these herbs were. And I would be polite. I'm not going to insult the person.
Sure.
And usually it was a little old sweet lady. And I'll just kind of be polite, pat her on the knee and say, well, you can try that if you want to. But in my mind, I'm thinking there's no way that works.
Right.
Because if it did work, they would have taught me that.
Right.
That's the assumption. That's the assumption of every doctor. And I'm talking top doctors at Hopkins, Harvard, and everywhere. I know some of these guys, down to just your local Joe Schmo, doc in the box PCP. We're all taught the same protocols. We're taught from the same institutional thing that started in 1910. We can talk about that. But, anyways, back to Roby. I'm just going back and forth in my mind, like, man, you sound like you're speaking truth to my spirit, man, but there's no way. And just this back and forth. And plus, I'm real busy. I'm seeing 40 patients a day. I don't have time for this.
Right.
And so I told him, I said, Roby, can't you just send me one book that kind of summarizes all this alternative stuff? Because he was sending me articles and research papers and YouTube videos and all this stuff.
And
And
he
I
was
mean, I'm
he's a
busy.
believer.
Well, he's since passed, and maybe we can get into that in a minute too. He believed in God,
Okay.
but there were some things in his belief system that weren't accurate. There were some counterfeits that had come in on
Okay.
him.
Okay. So he wouldn't have said
Um,
he was a Christ follower. But he believed in God, and he had some truths around how God designed the body that you were
Yeah,
receiving
like
as truth by the Spirit.
yeah, what he believes is there is an intelligent design to this
Got
operation,
it.
obviously, just like a mechanic. So that's what he told me when I said, "Can you just send me a book that summarizes all this stuff? Because I'm busy and I don't have time to go to all these conferences, read all this stuff." And I said, "To summarize this alternative medicine." And he said, I mean, he like came through the phone at me, "Alternative? What do you mean alternative?" And I'm like, "Well, this it's a little different, maybe kind of quack kind of stuff." I mean, I was so arrogant and naive. But he said, "Okay, Ben, smarty pants." He said, "Next time your car's making a weird little noise, are you going to take it to the mechanic or the alternative mechanic? Next time you're going to get on an airplane to fly to a medical conference, you're going to go with the aviation guys or the alternative aviation guys. Next time you're
Wow.
going to build a addition to your clinic, you're so busy down there and you need to build an addition, you're going to call the engineer or the alternative engineer to design that thing." And he said, "Ben, this is just the way it is. There's no alternative to the truth. God designed things a certain way. All mechanics have to follow the law of internal combustion engines. All pilots have to follow the aerodynamic laws of that got put into the physical realm. And that's just the way it is. There's no alternative to the truth." And so, man, I just couldn't shake it, but I was so busy. And he finally got tired of, and of course, that provision thing kicks in
Sure.
there like, I got a good thing going here,
Right.
and this is going to rock things up. And I don't know about this. And, that orphan mindset,
Yeah.
all that. And so, but then he said, "Ben, I'm tired of, I mean, this is like over a year.
Yes.
We're going back and forth on the phone." He said, "Forget it. Send me your 10 sickest patients.
Mm.
Send me your worst ulcerative colitis, your worst psoriasis, your worst lupus, fibromyalgia, diabetic who's uncontrolled, blood sugar's 400. What?" And I did. I sent him my 10 sickest patients and they all came back well. I mean, well, like off their meds. So I had a 74-year-old guy, 330 pounds, on 9 medications that I had prescribed,
Yes.
a couple blood pressure pills, 3 diabetes pills, an acid reflux pill, arthritis pill, cholesterol pill, maybe some others. Anyways, on 3 diabetic pills, this guy's blood sugar is still pushing 300. And I told that guy, I said, "You have got to get on insulin. Your sugar's out of control. You're going to kill your kidneys, amputate your feet, go blind, heart attack, stroke, all the things that happens to diabetics," and try to scare him into it. And he said, "Doc, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving myself shots. There's no way." And Roby had just made this offer. And I said, "Well, I mean, I respect you. I'm not going to like force you. I can't force you, but another option, if you want, you go up to Amarillo. You can talk to this guy. Don't really know him that well, but he doesn't believe in diabetes." He says it's not a disease, it's a consequence. Sounds crazy, but if you want to go talk to him, well, he went. He came back. It was 4 or 5 months later, and he was below 300 now, but his blood sugar was normal.
Mm.
And a tear in his eye, he came back to the clinic and he was off all his meds except for half of one blood pressure pill. And he said, "Dr. Ben, thank you for telling me about Roby. That changed my life. I'm back outside in my garden. I can bend down and tie my shoes. I can play with my grandkids." And he had his life back.
Wow.
And in that moment,
That was it. Because Roby said, "I'm done talking to you about this. You just send your people. I'm done talking about it."
yeah. And the
Good for you.
diabetes thing's big. I mean, if you're diabetic, that increases your risk of cancer, heart
Mm.
attack, stroke, Alzheimer's, all the bad. And I thought, man, if you can reverse diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that is game changer. Half
Yeah.
of Garza County is diabetic, half of America's diabetic. So if you can do that, you just move that needle big time. So, anyways, I was all in at that
I
point. These are
bet.
my patients. I couldn't deny it, this truth. I went and told the hospital board, "Hey, I'm learning this stuff. I'm not going to hide it. I won't go out there and promote it and put a billboard up. But if someone asks me during one of these 7-minute visits that y'all give me," and it's not them, it's not Garza, it's the
Right.
system. 7-minute PCP is your average PCP visit. I said, if I'm in a 7-minute visit and someone says, "Hey doc, I heard you learned something new about reversing diabetes or acid reflux. I want to do that." I'm going to say, "Okay, get you a follow-up appointment for 1 hour." And I told my front desk girls, give it to them. And I told the hospital board, "Listen, if you get 8 people asking for that, that's an 8-hour day. I'm seeing 8 people instead of 40. The money's going back into the red. It ain't going to work. I'm just letting you know." if people start coming like this, I'm not going to say no. So they fired me. So anyways, that's a long answer to your
No,
question, but
but
that's how I got into medicine, and then that's how the Lord got me into doing something different. He opened
wow.
my eyes. He opened my eyes to this system
Yes.
that's clear now. Management, we chose. It was chosen for us. We don't even know this. Doctors don't know what I'm about to tell you. In 1910, Carnegie and Rockefeller got together and got a guy named Abraham Flexner. Flexner was not a doctor, but he's an education curriculum expert. They said, "Hey, I want you to go around the country and kind of survey and look at all the medical schools out there." Because there were 23 homeopathic medical schools, there were naturopathic medical schools, there were herbalist schools, chiropractic schools, allopathic, naturopathic, traditional Chinese medicine, ancient Ayurvedic, Indian medicine, all these different. And Flexner came back and said, there is too much chaos out there,
Mhm.
too many different curriculum. We need to standardize this thing to one model. We need to license these guys under this one system, make that the system for every state, and bring continuity and uniformity to it. And the one he recommended is called allopathic. That's your MD. And allopathic at the time was brand new, and everyone, all the other healing modalities
Yes.
use things that were in the earth, herbs, sunlight, whatever, natural things, and they came alongside and walked with the native healing that's designed this. When we get a paper cut, we don't worry about that. We don't think we're going to bleed to death from
Right.
that. It's going to heal.
Yes.
That healing mechanism, your body knows how to keep blood sugar normal, blood pressure normal, acid reflux, keep it in your stomach where it's supposed to be. It knows how to do all this stuff. And all these other modalities just came alongside and kind of assisted and helped that.
Right.
Allopathic uses a chemical based pharmaceutical approach, which at the time, most of those pharmaceuticals were derivatives of the petroleum industry, which John D. Rockefeller owned 98% of. So all the money went to those schools, went to those research facilities. They became really big labs and hospitals and healthcare systems, and universities, medical schools got all that funding. And then the curriculum got influenced by the Rockefeller Foundation, the
Wow.
education system. So there was that point on, homeopathic medical schools went away.
Yeah. Wow.
Herbalists, naturopaths. There's only 8 states now that recognize a naturopathic degree. Chiropractic survived with. They got in a big battle, took it to court, and they kind of survived. Almost didn't, but did. But they got still marginalized. Oh, you're just a chiropractor kind of thing. But that's where it started. And
Wow.
pre World War II, we're the healthiest country in the world today. And since allopathic, we've gone nothing but downhill. We are dead last in all health outcomes.
Wow.
We have the most chronic disease. Any age group, you can look at infants, children under 10, you can look at 18 and under, you can look at young adults, you can look at middle age, you can look at elderly. We have the most diseases across the board. We have the highest infant mortality rate of any industrialized country. It's not even close. It's by far the more of our babies die than anybody else. We have the highest maternal mortality rate. That's death within the year of pregnancy and birth. We have the highest overall death rate. We die younger. Our average, it just dropped a year. That's a huge drop. We're down to 76 years. Everybody else around 80. Any way you slice this thing, it's a total failure. We take more medication than any other country. We go to the doctor more, do more surgeries, spend way more money. It's 2 or 3 times more money to come in dead last place. And I tell people that's like giving Texas Tech University athletic department the highest athletic budget, anybody in the whole country, and give them the number one recruiting class every year and give them the best facilities. And they're going to come in dead last in the Big 12 every single year.
Right.
Ain't nobody going to put up with that. But that is what it is. And people don't know this. And,
Right.
and employers in particular, heaven in business and kingdom at work and all these kingdom minded guys, that's what we're trying to get this message to.
Yes.
Guys, you're paying top dollar to your most precious resource God gave you, the people. You're paying to be in a system that produces the worst outcomes. You wouldn't pick the worst cleaning company to clean your facility. You wouldn't pick the worst whatever, fill in the blank, for your company to partner with to get a service from.
Yeah.
And of course, I know it's hardly any options. It's all been, the whole system
Yes.
is under this.
Wow.
And It's a tough deal, but the beauty of it is people are waking up, they're seeing this because the cost is so high
Yeah.
and our health outcomes are so poor now. People are like, "What is going on
Yes.
and where's an alternative?" And they're looking and they're finding.
Yes.
And anyways, that was 12 years ago when I got fired, started Veritas Medical, just me and a laptop and a chair, and rented $100 room in a Farm Bureau insurance lady's office in Post. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And now we have 3 locations and 5 or 6 nurse pracs and a bunch of health coaches, and it's turned into a big operation
That's
through
awesome.
word of mouth. And the Lord's just blessed it and just continues to show us deeper and more and deeper and more because it's just awesome. People
Wow.
can get well.
I remember when you and I first chatted, you had mentioned something about, so I don't know where this came in the story, whether this was after you started Veritas, but you'd mentioned something about pillars. So I remember us having this
Oh,
conversation
yeah.
about pillars around health. Can we have that conversation? First of all, remind me of what those pillars were. And then there was like a shift, like God took you through, this is a recall from our conversation, but God
Yeah.
took you through a shift in terms of even those pillars, which I believe are the basis for Veritas Medical and perhaps the framework in which you operate on the wellness side as well.
Yeah. So early on, right after the Lord started Veritas, I just got in my heart felt the strong impression of just teach the people these 4 things: nutrition, hydration, movement, and peace.
Okay. And peace.
Yeah. True peace, not stress management, which of course we know true peace is a person
Yes.
and he's got to be the Lord over your life.
Yes.
All this other stuff lords over us. But so I got that. I'm like, yeah, that resonates. And yeah, okay, okay. And so I was teaching that thing, but still enough of me was in the equation. And especially in a scenario, so patients that tend to seek an alternative opinion are desperate. Normally, they've been everywhere, tried everything, super sick. No one can figure out this disease. I'm so sick. The doctors kind of gave up on me. And then they'll go seek out an alternative guy. So you have really sick people coming in desperate. They're hurting. We're doctors. We have compassion. We have our intellect. We have our training. We want to ease the suffering and we know how to do it with a pharmaceutical. And what I was learning was here's how you could do it with a nutraceutical, a natural supplement.
Okay.
And a simple example is if you have high blood sugar, I could write a prescription for metformin,
Yep.
or I could tell you to go to the health food store and get berberine. That's an herb. And they've done head to head randomized controlled trials. And I can pull that data and I can show a person out of the medical literature, berberine does just as good as metformin.
Mm.
Now, your insurance ain't going to pay for berberine, but the side effects on an herb are all beneficial side effects. The side effects on metformin is you can get loose stool and abdominal cramps. But here, the but is this is the green version
Right.
of this pharmaceutical version. High blood sugar is smoke. It's not the problem. It's smoke from the fire. And these berberine and metformin just push that smoke down artificially. It's kind of like opening all the doors and windows and turn on the fans and get this smoke cleared out so I can breathe real quick.
Yes.
And I'm not going to die in the next 5 seconds from breathing smoke in. And that's fine. So I mean, we do that. It's fine to prescribe. I mean, someone walks in here with blood pressure 200 over 120. I'm prescribing.
Right.
Probably going to give them an IV of magnesium because magnesium is a mineral that calms that thing down. And they're going to walk out here, go to the pharmacy and get their pharmaceutical. But I'm going to tell them in my next breath, now you get back in here and we're going to start working the 4 pillars and get to the root of this. And the root of that diabetes, that fire that's burning down the kitchen, and all we did is clear the smoke, that fire's still raging. If you don't get to that and fix it. And the crazy thing is, there are studies that show if you manage blood sugar and get it down really good to this manageable level, this target goal, we call it an A1C, it's a 3-month blood sugar average. And if you get that down to about 6 to 7, that's decent management. The studies show that does not reduce your long-term outcomes as far as kidney death and
Wow.
dialysis, heart attack, stroke, neuropathy, and all-cause mortality doesn't shift. That's between tight control and not tight control. Your sugar, that smoke can be here or here, well managed or not so well managed, but the long term outcomes, and it's the same, we'll just say heart disease because that's the number 1 killer. You can get on a statin to lower that LDL, and everybody's happy. Your doctor's happy. You're at a 70 now instead of 150 LDL. Hey, doc, what's that doing for how much is that decreasing my future death from heart attacks or death from all causes? 0.8% reduction
Wow.
in cardiovascular and all cause mortality.
Wow.
And that's my biggest beef. These patients are walking around, oh, I'm taking my Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor, statin drug to lower this thing. I'm good. Did your doctor tell you that's giving you a 0.8%? This whole thing, high cholesterol versus low. Every day I battle this with new patients coming in. Mine yesterday, fear, anxiety, you could see it on her. I mean, it was weighing her down, her countenance even, because her doctor, and this is the reason she came here, her doctor kept saying, your cholesterol is so high. You have got to take this. You're going to die. He was speaking this thing, and it was on her. Okay. I looked at her cholesterol, and yes, it was high, but guess what? It was not inflamed. And that's the issue. Is that LDL inflamed or not inflamed? Why would God give you a liver that's going to make LDL all day long? And if you don't eat enough eggs and saturated fat in your diet, you don't eat enough cholesterol, your liver's going to kick it into overdrive to make more. We need LDL. It's not bad. Everyone says that's a bad cholesterol. Don't call anything God made bad. That LDL that comes out of your liver that God made, God gave you to make it. It has an important role to play. It's a backbone for your immune system, your brain health, your neurologic system. You have less cancer, less dementia, and less death from infectious disease in the seventh and eighth decade of life if you have higher cholesterol. And the higher, the better. The higher, the better the longevity.
Wow.
So that LDL comes out of your liver. Now, it can be the native God given LDL. It's called, I call it big fluffy, but the
Big
large,
fluffy?
yeah, think of like a cotton ball. Large buoyant
Yes.
is the medical, but it can be transformed into what we call small dense. So like a big fluffy cotton ball down to a small dense
Mhm.
BB. Big fluffy cotton ball LDL, it rolls down that artery, keeps it smooth and clean, the inside of your artery. Smooth, clean, and flowing good. Small dense BB, it bangs around and scrapes the wall of that artery, starts an inflammatory process on that wall. That's a problem.
Mm.
God didn't give you the small BB. God gave you big fluffy. It's us, it's we, it's the standard American that gets it to change from big fluffy to small dense.
Wow.
And that's why with this lady, she was big fluffy, and I said, be released. You have the most beautiful cholesterol I've ever seen. Is it high? Yeah. And hallelujah, praise God, because the higher the cholesterol in your next 3 decades of life, the better your mortality is going to be. And I'll pull all the data and studies to show it to you. And this is
Wow.
JAMA, American College of Cardiology, British Medical Journal. These aren't little, holistic journals somewhere. These are the standard guys. And I've got a 1 hour lecture that goes through all the
Oh
data
my
because that tree of
god.
knowledge, we've been eating from this tree of knowledge. We've submitted to scientists and doctors and randomized controlled trials and evidence based medicine. And I'm not saying throw it all out,
Sure.
but what I'm trying to make people aware of is that thing is under the influence of not the Spirit of God,
Yeah.
not the Spirit of truth. And they do this thing called, it's a statistical gymnastics where they change that 0.8% to 36%, and they put this bar graph in front of the doctors. The drug reps run in real quick. You got 2 seconds with the doctor, and it looks like amazing 36% reduction in all cause mortality. And it's a statistical game. I go through that in that lecture too.
Wow.
But the doctors are too busy. They don't know it. They just it's a mess.
You were
Eh,
speaking to as you were sharing that, I was like, when you're talking about that last patient with the with big fluff that you're like the big fluffy is good news for
Yeah,
you. It was
yeah,
like that was the peace pillar.
yeah.
It was a peace pillar.
So what she's beginning to understand through that visit, we spend 2 hours with new patients, but now we do this through the wellness program, and our health coaches can do this. That's not the practice of medicine.
Right.
That's education.
Yes.
You just need the truth, and the truth will set you free. So let me tell you how this whole thing got off, and I teach her that, and I show her, and I connect these dots for her, get on the whiteboard and connect the dots. Then she sees more clearly. And then I can talk about soul versus spirit.
Yes.
I can talk about how that spirit's born again. So now Jesus came to restore that which was lost, access to our Father who is the truth. And the Holy Spirit will lead us into all truth. And we can ask the Holy Spirit about this. But the soul over here those eyes got opened up in the garden when that liar and Eve went with it. He accused, he deceived, and he gets a question mark on who God is in our heart, and then we get a question mark on who we are, and we walk in fear, and we submit to these priests in white coats, and then what they say is the gospel, and it just gets our mind, and people don't understand. And I used to not. I mean, the word says it. That's where it got me. Like, man, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Yes.
And now the science proves it. And so, okay, now I believe it. Harvard Mind Body Institute, 98% of all disease rooted in a thought. When you have a thought of rooted in unforgiveness, bitterness, anger, it changes the structure of your water, which you're one big bag of water. You have water that your DNA floats in. You have water your mitochondria floats in. Your cells float in water. It's a bag of water floating in water. The water changes physical shape, and that double helix DNA crunches up like a spring under those kind of thoughts. And it changes which genes are red or not red. You may have the genes, like that lady, her granddad, dad, and siblings have had heart attacks. There's a genetic predisposition. And I told her, you can go into the library. On your way home, stop by the library. And I want you to just stand in the front door and gaze upon all those books on the shelf. And think of those as your genes. You got 26,000 genes roughly. But guess what? You're in charge of looking at that librarian and say, Miss Librarian, go to that shelf right over there, second shelf from the top, third book from the right, open that up, go to page 36, read the second paragraph, and I'll do what that says to do. That's called genetic expression. You can have the gene for Alzheimer's, you can have the BRCA gene for breast cancer, you can have a genetic predisposition. Keep the book shut. I do a whole lecture on this.
Wow.
100 years ago, we didn't have all these diseases. The first heart attack was in 1912 in the United States, first one ever recorded. These are modern new diseases. There's 100 autoimmune diseases now, brand new over the last 100 years. Lung cancer was so rare at the turn of the century, in 1900, they published every single case. It's a new phenomenon. Genes don't change that fast. We have the same genes. It's the epigenetics. What turns these genes on and off? Processed food. We are demineralized because we have not stewarded the soil. So the food, even if it's organic, doesn't have the minerals. We're under artificial light all day instead of sunlight. We don't see green space anymore. The biggest sitting, it's the new smoking. We're sitting in the car. We're sitting in the chair at work. We're
Yes.
sitting in the car on the way home. We're sitting on the couch when we get home. The number one of all is in our thinking. And it is so, I'm telling you, this heart thing, if your heart's got a filter from the liar and you believe about yourself or about God, then you're automatically going to be on to your neighbor have a view that's not accurate. It drives fight or flight. Your autonomic nervous system. You have two parts of your nervous system. Voluntary. I'm telling that to move. It's not going to move till I say.
Right.
I have another muscle right here. It's moving 60 times a minute for the rest of my life, and I don't tell it to do that.
Yes.
That's autopilot, cardiovascular, immune system, hormone system, endocrine, GI. I'm digesting my breakfast, it's pumping acid. I'm not telling it to do that, okay? So autopilot, it's under the control of your heart, not your beating heart.
Right.
And if you believe you're rejected, you believe you're unworthy, you believe, fill in the blank accusation from the devil, it changes something at a quantum, whatever you want to call it, this level, non-physical level, something's happening. And that change in the frequency affects the physical.
Wow.
And it's easier to understand when you go back to chemistry class and realize that periodic chart,
Yep.
carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, all the elements that make up your pancreas, that make up your eyeball, your lung, your heart, your thyroid, all your physical, this brick wall behind me, all those are elements from the periodic chart. Well, an element is, if you took one carbon atom, protons and neutrons are in the nucleus. That's a positive charge and a neutral charge particle. That's what makes up a nucleus of all atoms. Then you have a negative charge particle way out here, and it orbits. The relative distance between this nucleus and this electron is like putting a golf ball on the 50-yard line of the Dallas Cowboys stadium and having an electron or having a mosquito buzzing at the very top of the light post. These atoms are 99% empty space of physical particles. It's not empty, but it's empty of physical particles. And that takes a minute because that brick wall seems real solid.
Yes.
It's 99% empty space of physical
Wow.
physical particle.
Wow.
And this is where we're this intersection. And God spoke the physical world into existence in that vibrational frequency, the spoken word, and his word upholds everything. It is true. I mean, that the energetics that are in our body, in these cells, it's not empty space because their energetics are in there. Now the world has come, the devil counterfeits stuff, energy medicine stuff, new age, different things. You can get into some stuff, but there's a lot of truth. Like these are real things. You can
Sure.
do these different modalities in these alternative clinics that are, I mean, they're true things and they're doing something. But if you don't have spirit of truth and you have a counterfeit there, so when you get more into this level, that quantum energy, energetics, vibrational frequency, all that,
Yeah.
you've got to go to the word and it is there. It is in the word. And I grew up just learning these Bible verses. Oh, that's
Yes.
cute and that sounds good to my intellect, but it's no, this is true.
Mm.
And when you let it transform your heart, boom, things happen in the physical. So that peace pillar, you cannot, back to Roby, my mentor,
Yes.
this dude, Dr. Fit was his name. FITT is his nickname. Roby Mitchell was his name. But man, this guy, amazing, brilliant, PhD, MD, ex-Marine, ex-Eagle Scout, all these things. I think he was the first African American exchange student from Tech to China, a university in China. Amazing, amazing guy, but fit. I mean, this guy, when I met him, he was probably 55 when I met him. His biceps were just huge, pecs. I mean, he showed it off too. One arm push ups, pull ups. Not a single drink or food would go past his lips that wasn't just off the chart superfood. He taught me how to not put anything in this mouth that didn't have some medicinal, good, healthy benefit to it. But anyways, he's A++
Right.
on the three pillars.
Yes, which was movement, food, food, movement, and
Hydration.
hydration. Yep.
Yep. So he wouldn't just drink water, he'd drink green tea because Ben, green tea does boom, 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 boom. He
Right.
named all the studies. Hey, tart cherry juice does boom, 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 name all the studies of,
Yes.
he's putting medicine. Food is medicine. Let thy food be thy. He was doing that. And then he calls me and he's like, man, prostate cancer. Well, he doubled it up, he tripled it up, and he knocked that prostate cancer down to done. He cured himself. A couple years later, here it comes back. Boom, quadruple down on it now, knocked it back down. A few years later, coming back on him. And at the very end, he calls me because now it's spread everywhere. I said, Roby, we got to drill down into this unresolved emotional stuff. And he said, I know, but I'm doing it my own way. I've got it figured out. He did some different things to try to deal with that. And at the very end, I mean, he's down to like 80 pounds, bedbound, just awful, suffering. And Buddy called me. I was making house calls up in Amarillo on him, and he said, "Ben, I've got this conference coming up." He had put it together, a 3-day medical conference. He had doctors flying in from around the country to speak, and he was a keynote. And he said, "Ben, I can't do it. I can't even get out of bed. I'm dying." And he said, I want you to speak for me, and I want you to teach and tell the people about the spiritual root, emotional, unresolved, and spiritual roots of disease.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I said, Roby, are you sure about that? And he said, yeah, the people need to know.
Wow.
And so I tell that just to say, yeah, and,
Yeah,
and
just a
in my
killer. He was
12
the
years,
expert on those 3 pillars. It's putting further emphasis on the importance of that 4th one, which is really not the 4th one, but the first one.
yeah. And that's what God did 2 years ago. He said it was a 10-year anniversary. It's June of 12, and June of 12 is when Veritas started. It was June of 22. And I didn't even notice that. I don't track those things. I don't throw parties like that. It's not what I don't pay attention to that. But in that day, I pulled out a box from underneath my hang up clothes in the closet that had been stuck under there since we moved 4 years before that. And I just didn't see it. And that day I saw it and pulled it out. And there are two letters in there from June of 12, my firing letter. And then right after that, some miraculous provision came in the mail. That's another story. But those two letters were in that box. And I pull it out and I'm like, June of 12? Yeah, that's when I got fired. And oh, yeah, that provision that came. It was a miracle. It's the only time that's ever happened ever in my life. And I was like, Lord, it's June of 22. What are you saying? What's this about? And I prayed on that. And he said, Ben, the first 10 years was your way. Now it's my way.
Mm.
And I said, what? Thought I was doing it your way. He said, no, you need to flip it. Peace, movement, hydration, nutrition. Because people were coming in here. You can get a lot done with those three. I mean, Roby got a lot done.
Yeah.
Ultimately didn't get it done, but you can get a lot done. So people come in here, oh, you're Dr. Ben, you have all these great testimonies of people getting healed and the diets you do and all the supplements and the cool things, IVs and whatnot. You're going to fix me. That kind of mentality. Even though we constantly are telling, no, 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 you're the cure. That's the name of my podcast. You're
Right.
the cure. You're the cure. You're the cure. But they still elevate. No, you're going to fix me and give me the diet. You tell me what to do.
Right.
I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it to a T, and then I'm going to be well, or else you're going to have to figure something else out. That kind of mentality. I mean, they're not saying that,
Yeah.
but it's this heart posture of somebody's intellectual tree of knowledge consumption is going to figure this thing out for me. And what the Lord's saying, no, 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 you got to flip this. That's just stewardship.
Mm.
Eat God food, not man food. Don't drink liquid sugar all day. Just water, tea, coffee, basically. And you need to get up out of your chair and move around a little bit. Go on a walk outside, especially get some sunshine, get out from artificial light. Basic stuff, stewardship.
Right.
We're not meant to consume seed oils. That's canola, that's soybean, corn. That's what came in 1912 that started driving the heart attacks. That's a whole
Ah,
nother show. I've
yeah.
interviewed some guys on that, but we're not designed to eat the big three: processed seed oils, the vegetable oils. Olive oil is fine. Avocado oil, fine. Coconut oil, those are from the flesh. I'm talking about these little seeds. Rape seed is canola, soybean, corn, cottonseed oil, that's Crisco and margarine. We're not designed to consume that. Our body does not utilize that well for fuel. Processed grain and processed sugar. Sugar's not bad the way we process it. Grain's not bad. There's 70 nutrients in a wheat berry. 70 nutrients God put in that thing. The millers back in 1920 figure out when they mill and grind that thing, every town used to have their own mill. The towns grew up around these mills. And as a community mill, a fresh milled that grain, give it to the whoever, and they make the bread. That's nutrition right there. It's amazing. Well, then they figured out they could sift it and get all that out because that the germ and the bran is where all that nutrition's at.
Right.
But there's a little oil in there and it'll go rancid. As soon as you grind that, you got 3 or 4 hours to make your bread. If it sits on a shelf, it's going rancid.
Right.
They figure out how to sift it, and all you have left is the protein and the starch. And I can put this in a bag. It's got shelf life forever. I can ship this on the railway across the country, and my profit margin goes up.
Right.
I've got no waste. Plus, I've got a secondary market here, and they sent that to the feedlot, the brand and the germ. Well, people started getting sick in the Southeast, especially, and they noticed this in Georgia. The psychiatric ward started filling up with psych diseases. And anyways, they traced it down to the white bread. There was no nutrition in that thing.
Wow.
And they told the millers, you got to put that back in. And they said, no, we're not doing that. And they said, well, at least you got to fortify it. They fortified it with 4 things out of 70.
Wow.
We're not designed to consume fortified modern flour, and we're not that processed sugar. Those are the big 3. And that's in everything: high fructose corn
Yep.
syrup, processed grain, and vegetable oils, the big 3. That's not good stewardship. It's lack of knowledge that got us there. It's a profit margin, love of money that got us there. It was just counterfeit, deceitful stuff. So just eat real food, God food, meal your own. It sounds crazy, but it's not. I made waffles this morning for the kids. I made biscuits and gravy yesterday. But I go to the cupboard and I get my 1 cup of wheat berries. I throw it in my grinder. It's right there on the countertop. Hit a button. It's electric grinder. 20 seconds. I got my flour. But I just gave my kids 70 different nutrients, plus real butter from grass-fed cows, plus maple syrup from Vermont. That and some eggs from the chickens out in the pasture, not caged eggs, chicken, and some bacon, and boom. I just nourished their physical
Yes.
temple so they can go be strong, They can ward off flu and COVID and this and that. We are designed with resiliency. We're designed with an immune system. We have the most amazing cancer detection system ever invented if we steward it. The most amazing snipers to kill cancer cells when they do find them. Amazing. Find it way, way sooner than a colonoscopy, pap smear, mammogram. Not against them necessarily, but we got a system way better.
Wow.
We don't know that. Every doctor was under Darwinian evolutionary teaching for 12 years, like I was. And you see the outcomes, you see the results. We're stuck in a system. It's robbing our money, it's robbing our health, and our life expectancy's down.
I have a question for you. This was just there's so much goodness in here. I could talk to you for hours. Um, I'm curious, since you're seeing this from this systematic perspective, and now you've based your whole practice and the wellness and the teaching elements on like multiplying these truths. It's like, yes, these four pillars, but what this peace pillar is super important, right? It's like you flipped it. I think you said you got to flip it, and you're doing that. What's God put on your heart in terms of multiplying this message within practitioners specifically? Uh,
Yeah.
what's He put on your heart for that?
Practitioners are tough because there's so much indoctrination, brainwashing, really.
Yeah,
And so, where medicine is really good, I'll give a shout out to our system. It's great at acute trauma care. If I get in a car wreck, I have an amputated arm, get me to a trauma surgeon, right? We're real good at that.
yeah,
So emergency, acute stuff. I mean, when COVID hit here in Lubbock and all these doctors shut their clinic, wouldn't see their own patients, we opened up to the whole community. And we had, I mean, they were hospital level oxygen saturations in the 60s and 70s, and we treated them here.
yeah.
So on the acute side, there's a lot we can do. So really with my practitioners, I'm moving them more into, hey guys, when these people are super sick, they need that acute care. They've been a standard American for 50 years and they're on day one of their journey with us and they
Right.
get a UTI even. I mean, there's natural things for UTI. So I think practitioners more, it's acute care. The health coaches, and
Mm,
that's can be just a regular layperson. You don't need a medical training, you
right.
don't need license, you don't need certified even. You need the truth, the love of the truth, and the love of people, and you teach those four pillars. That's where we got to shift.
Got
And these
it.
practitioners are sitting over here in the wings, just, hey, if you have an emergency situation, let me step in and do some emergency care. We're
Yes.
good. That's good. That's fine. And as corporately, we need to shift that way. So businesses in particular. So my burden's been for the people that show up here in the medical clinic the past 12 years. Like I said, they are desperate. They're on their last leg. They've gone to Hopkins and Mayo and everywhere, and they're so sick.
Right.
Like, man, if you just would have had this truth 5 years ago, 10 years or earlier, can we get upstream?
Yes.
Not, it's hard to do that because when it's just a little reflux, a little migraine headache, and a little fatigue, and I'm getting old, and just diabetes. I mean, they don't look, they're not motivated.
Right.
They don't know to look, but mostly not motivated. Well, who is motivated is their boss. Their employer is spending out the wazoo to manage that diabetes, reflux, and hypertension. The productivity is probably down. We know the healthcare costs are through the roof. So they're motivated, not just money wise, but that's a part of it, stewarding
Yes.
those dollars that God's given that business, but stewarding your employees. So
Mm,
that's where our focus
makes
is
sense.
multiplication. You multiply through the businessmen and women, get their people stewarded through education.
Yes. Yes.
And then they won't need that system.
Right.
I
Yeah.
had a guy call me, Jamie Winship called and said, hey, my buddy's got a $5 million grant from the state of Tennessee to recruit and get more medical and nursing students into the pipeline because they have a shortage.
Right.
I said, Jamie, here's where you put that 5 million to the people and teach them how to not need that system.
Right.
Decrease the demand on that system. Yeah, there's a shortage. The demand's overwhelming and the outcomes aren't good. Why? I don't know why we're demanding it, but teach the people and the demand goes down because they don't need it. You should be able to have a health insurance plan that pays for car wrecks, emergency stuff, traumas. But all this chronic disease, diabetes, and autoimmune stuff and cancer,
Yeah.
95% of cancer is not genetic, it's diet and lifestyle. That's published data. You get this data in front of CEOs, light bulbs go off. It is a big shift of thinking.
Yes.
It is an investment a little bit, but educating on the front end, talk about a stewardship and saving money and investing your talents. more wisely,
Yeah.
but there's just a lack of knowledge that this even is an option. So
Yes.
that's where we want to multiply things really is there.
That makes so much sense. Okay, that's super good. Now talking to you, let me ask you this before I let you go. From an individual level, I mean, and I could speak for I'm actually speaking from personal experience when it comes to this topic. It can be that it can be very overwhelming. Like
Yeah.
you're shifting, like you're beginning to shift your mindset around things, and then you get in research mode, and then there's so much information, and then it's just like,
Yeah.
and you're trying to figure out like this, how many things can I change? Where do I start? All of those things. And as an individual, it can be overwhelming, which is, I suspect, also why a lot of people come and want to come to you and say, okay, you know all these things. Help me figure out the things so I can just
Yeah.
go and you just tell me what to do and I'll go do it. Right. I could actually
Yeah.
relate to that because I know I can get overwhelmed by the massive amount just on the nutrition pillar alone. I get overwhelmed. Right.
Yeah.
What
Yep.
what do you say to people like me who are just like, "No, I'm all about putting the kingdom over my health too and just walking this thing out in its fullness of all the things, the peace, the movement, the hydration and all the things." How do we operate in this place by his grace without overwhelm and walk this thing out?
Yep. Seek the kingdom first. That is number one. Make sure your heart posture is kingdom. Lord, you're the Lord of my life. Holy Spirit, lead me into next steps. A wise man seeks much wise counsel. Yes. So should I get wise counsel from fill in the blank person or program, whatever? And then that's number one always, because it really is so simple. But I remember the first day Roby came to Post, Texas to my clinic, and it was lunchtime. And he said, "Man, where are we going to eat lunch?" And I said, "Well, there's a Sonic, a McDonald's, there's a Subway." And I thought Subway's probably the healthiest. And he said, "Well, don't you have a grocery store?" And I'm like, "Well, a grocery store, you don't go there for lunch on your
Right.
lunch break." I mean, at this little tiny town with a
Yes.
little tiny grocery store, it's not like a big with a food court.
Yes.
I'm like, "Well, you don't go to the grocery store for lunch?" He's like, "Well, yeah, you do. There's real food there." I'm like, "What do you mean real food? I'm eating real food." He said, "No, all that stuff you just said, that's not real food.
Right.
That's not food meant for human consumption." We went to this little grocery store and he hit the perimeter,
Yep.
kept in the perimeter mostly. He grabbed a bag of spinach, he grabbed an apple, grabbed some almonds, I think some lunch meat, which is the healthiest. But for that, I mean, basically meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, eggs, boiled,
Yep.
it is really simple, but that sounds maybe not super apt. I mean, just getting some raw spinach and some almonds. There's ways to make this food good. I said
Yeah.
biscuits and gravy, waffles, bacon, eggs, all that.
Yeah.
But so the health coaches we have, they teach people, but I'm going to tell you, it's just a matter of gain some knowledge. So we curate this content down to bite size, like 2-minute videos that hit your inbox on your phone once a week with a little nugget.
Yeah.
We have weekly Zooms where the navigators are there. These sweet, sweet gals can just walk with you
Nice.
and teach you the littlest thing. Like there's good, better, and best. You don't have to be best on day one, just good. Let's change out your iodized table salt. Now, and just use what you got. But when that salt's empty, that has three minerals, sodium and chloride and iodine.
You
Next
got
time you
balloon.
go grocery,
You've had fireworks, balloons, all the things during this conversation.
that's pretty cool. I don't know what that's about.
I'll tell you when we're done recording. I got the answer for that.
But go get sea salt. God's real salt has like 72, 78, depending on the kind you get. Himalayan, Celtic, or real salt, Redmond's real salt. Just do that switch. That's a
Right.
simple switch. It's the salt shaker. You don't even know it's different. Next time your margarine's empty, get real grass-fed butter.
Right.
Next time this, then this. And we have a whole list of good, better, and best. And you just start making these little things. Set an alarm on the phone. Get up every hour. When you just get up for 90 seconds only, do a squat if you want or walk around a little if you want, but just the uprightness
Yes.
triggers all kinds of neurohormone cascades for your metabolism. Sit for 8 hours and then go work out for an hour at the gym at the end of the no, then cancel out the 8 hours of negative you got. Just getting up every hour and standing up.
Yes.
That's a simple thing.
Yes.
So we boil it down to simple step one, two, three, nugget, nugget, nugget. We're changing your thinking, changing
Yes.
you're going to be not a standard American. Standard Americans are here
Right.
and you're going to start shifting, 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 and just putting real salt into your salt shakers one shift. I mean, this right here, it's some water. I
Yep.
put salt in this, and people that you drink salt water, but just a pinch because it energizes that water. Actually, it's called structured water, and and I need the minerals. Our
Right.
ancestors had all this. Anyways, so we just teach these basic steps. Boom, boom, boom. Now, I will say if your blood sugar is 400, my dad, 78 years old, went for his annual Blue Cross Blue Shield, paid for Xerox health annual health checkup with his PCP. Walks in healthy, just thought he was getting old, fatigue, muscles kind of wasting, shuffling his gait, but he's 78 and he's still working for Xerox, longest employee
Oh,
ever,
wow.
54 years. He walks out on 4 prescriptions. He's newly diagnosed diabetic. His blood sugar's 350, something like that. High blood pressure, cholesterol, and sugar.
Right.
4 prescriptions. Calls Emily, our health coach, who's my sister too. Okay, Dad, meet me at the cafe tomorrow, and I'm going to start teaching you what to order off that menu. And then here's what you're going to do. And for him, because his sugar's that high, yeah, he went meat and veggies only.
Right.
And he got his sugar down to normal in 90 days.
Yep.
He got in the swimming pool and started putting some weights in the water to get resistance training going. He got out of his chair every hour and set that alarm. He got a real specific plan that still wasn't crazy. Quit eating ice cream every single night before bed. I mean, there's some,
Yeah.
he had to be more strict.
Yes.
He had to get after it quick. We
Yes.
had to give him a more detailed plan and like, you got to move this needle right now or get the meds and move the needle slowly. He
Right.
wanted to go, he didn't want the meds. He was committed. So that's two different scenarios. It
Yes.
depends on where you're at.
Yes.
So we call them wellness navigators and kind of step through that with people.
I love
But
that.
I'm telling you, you can just get on there, consume the information, or just listen to podcasts, the blog, and all that's free. But our monthly deal's 35 a month to get this curated content.
Oh,
This
that's
is
great.
a brand new program. We're adding to the content. We're
Nice.
tweaking the way we deliver it, trying to make it more and more streamlined. So it's not perfect yet, but we got to do this. It's overwhelming. The demand on the medical side was overwhelming. The wait list was 6 months, and I'm thinking 6 months you're going to sit there and be a standard American. If you start shifting even a little, 2%, 5%, 10%,
Yes.
maybe in 6 months, that visit will be way more narrow and easy, or maybe not even needed.
Right.
And that's what happens. You walk with your navigator, you don't need the doctor
Yes.
almost always.
Yeah, that's so good, and also encouraging because what I'm hearing you say is because when I started this journey, which was a handful of years ago, I started with that where it's like, what's the next best decision? Okay, what's the next best
Yeah.
decision? Just kind of making little shifts, and
Yeah.
then now because I think because I'm getting closer to 50, now I'm beginning to feel like, do I need to stack these faster? Do I like that's how I feel internally? It's like because as I'm watching my friends that are in their 50s, they've got new challenges and new things. I just turned 47,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, I've been on this journey for 7 years of these little shifts, little shifts, little shifts, little shifts,
Yeah.
little shifts. And then because I'm getting closer to 50 now, it's just like, nope, stay in the place. What I'm hearing you is just like, stay in that place of peace, keep walking it out, keep making those things. There's nothing major going on. Just keep
Mhm.
making more shifts, add because you're continuing to
Yeah.
add shifts, becoming less and less of standard American, as you said.
Yeah. And there are some probably core things, and we're going to start kind of explaining or getting these out in a real easy to understand way. There's some core things that really move the needle a lot on your mitochondria. The
Okay.
mitochondria is the little carburetors in your
Yep.
cells, and you can Google the word inflammation and any disease you want: cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all of them. And there's a connection between inflammation and every disease. Well, the
Right.
inflammation's coming from that carburetor not
Mm,
being tuned up enough. So there's a basic 4 or 5, 6 things that will tune that carburetor up pretty quickly, and
yes.
they're simple. And we don't have time to explain it, but you get in the outside and see the sunrise.
Yep.
If these eyeballs are in natural light within 30 minutes of sunrise, there are things that happen through that optic nerve to your brain that are awesome. And then
Wow.
30 minutes of sunset, try to get natural light into you. And if you could get 30 minutes during the midday would be awesome. But just that knowing that, that's a shift on your carburetor big time, a good beneficial shift on the
Wow.
carburetor. Keep your eating window basically to correlate with daylight hours. So in the winter, that's a little more narrow. In the
Yes.
summer, it's a little wider, but basically 8 to 12 hours, not this huge wide eating window, 16, 18 hours. I mean, that's some knowledge. It's basic, but that's a big tune
Yeah.
up item. Muscles resistance training, 60 minutes a week in a week, 60 minutes. So 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes 3 times a week, 40 to 60 minutes in a week. But you get this muscle, that's a mitochondria builder. So there are these core things on the
That's good.
mitochondria that everyone kind of needs to know and do. And so
I
you
love
learn
that.
those and implement. that'll be key for long-term health.
That's so good. And I'm assuming the peace pillar is a part of you were just I was gonna ask you to
Mm.
shout that out. The peace pillar is a core part of this process that you're walking people through. It sounds like a member, maybe like a membership or something that you were sharing.
Yeah, we do Peace Pillar consults. We have podcasts on Peace Pillar,
Nice.
blog articles on Peace Pillar. You can go on our website, read the blog, and get the um, uh, recordings of the podcast. But then, if people need some one-on-one Peace Pillar, I do a Peace Pillar 101 talk every month. The navigators do small groups, and you can
Yep.
talk to the navigator about Peace
Nice.
Pillar stuff
I love it.
if you need the more personal. But yeah, that's part of it. Those are included at no extra charge on the Peace Pillar
Yeah.
one-on-one stuff. And we don't have it all figured out. We're not saying we know
Yeah.
everything, but it's clear that body, soul, spirit, that's huge. Kingdom
Yes.
versus gospel of salvation. We know, got to know the gospel of the kingdom. We got to know true identity versus these false identities we
Yes.
walk in. There's some core, they're not the elementary doctrines Paul talked about. Definitely we need those.
Yes.
But it seems like there's like, I don't know if it'd be kindergarten or if it'd be junior high, but there's some other core pieces that
Yes.
I didn't get growing up. And I'm thinking, man, if I had these, would have had these in junior high or elementary school, where would we be?
Yeah.
If I would have known I'm not an orphan, I'm a son, if I would have known some key principles. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
That's so good. I'm excited about the platform that you're building because the whole multiplication strategy from the company perspective, reaching the individuals directly, all of that, it's so good. Where do people go? Yeah, we're definitely going to link up the podcast. Where do people go to learn more about this membership you were sharing about, and just in general, where should folks go to connect for?
Veritas Wellness member.com.
Okay.
Our old website, veritasmedical.com, will redirect you to there. A lot of people go there because that's what we were known for forever. And it's funny, when we were opening the new website, we launched in January 11th. My IT team, we were all gathered around, we hit the go button and it wouldn't go. It wouldn't launch the new site. And we're like, what in the world? And I don't know the technical piece, but it had to do with the domain name. And in the moment I said, switch the name. God said, flip this thing anyway, just switch it to Veritas Wellness instead of Veritas Medical, veritaswellnessmember.com. And he typed that, boom, and it launched right then.
Nice.
There's like this one last piece of this medical thing's fine, but it's not that's not, don't, that will, anyways, I think
Yeah.
I've
No, no, no,
explained
no.
myself
It's
enough.
super good. Super good.
So either website, veritaswellnessmember.com, veritasmedical.com,
I
will
love
get
it.
you there now.
So good. I appreciate you. I personally learned so much goodness in here. I know those who watched and listened did as well. And so I appreciate you sharing today. Appreciate you.